Can $33 billion flow into Bitcoin and crypto relatively soon? Theoretically, yes, it would be conceivable. Why? We'll take a look at that in a moment. Plus all the other news, plus all the important economic data, since there was also a setback in Bitcoin recently. And of course, the crypto trading setup so you can get the most out of it. So we'll see each other. Now new, UP Trend VIP trading, your opportunity to copy the signals of 2 professional traders for free. They managed to grow an account from $4,000 to $30,000 within 2 months. The results in the group are also impressive. All you need for this is a deposit of $100 into your BingX account. You can find all further information below in the description. Let's briefly start with the crypto. Yes, it looks a bit mixed there. This is naturally reflected in the fact that Bitcoin has also corrected somewhat more strongly again. However, this is not particularly concerning at the moment. So we'll take a look at this in the trading setup, focusing on what you should pay attention to now. But fundamentally logical. We still have the meme coins which occasionally shoot up or also go down. I'm very curious about that. I've already announced it. Whether this will repeat itself, meaning that we first see the meme coins and then all the other altcoins pump afterwards. Especially since the AI sector is now also starting to gain some momentum again. The most important event this week is the Fed interest rate decision, and you can see it here. So it is assumed that there will be no interest rate cuts or increases. This is where it gets exciting, or rather, this should already be priced in. But the decisive factor will be the press conference afterwards. Because, well, we remember back, Paul, when he just swung out with the speech on the 18th December saying, yes, we don't want to hold Bitcoin and we are not allowed to either. What happens with that is, in the meantime, he has somewhat adjusted his choice of words. But let's be surprised by what he will report. So I strongly assume that Wednesday could indeed be quite volatile, possibly right away. Regarding the trading setup, it could also be that the market makers are deliberately pushing the price down so that it goes up again from that point. Let's see. At this point, a big thank you to you. Many thanks for almost 4,000 views. We have 173 likes. So at this point, it would be awesome if we could break the 200 mark again today. I can also easily tell you why. You support the algorithm tremendously by doing so. So that means just leave a free like now. It costs you nothing, but it significantly advances me and my work. And if you're up for it, let's discuss in the comments. I always personally respond to them. If you haven't seen any of my videos yet, you might be asking, okay, what is this all about, Daniel? This is about crypto news and trading signals. This means you get all the news daily without hype, transparently and neutrally. And then the perfect trading setup so you can also maximize your monetary gains. If you're interested, feel free to leave a free subscription, activate the bell so you don't miss any important information. A warm welcome to all the newcomers. And now let's continue. And now, before we get to the trading setup, I want to briefly explain how I come to the conclusion that possibly around 33 billion or more could flow into Bitcoin. Because the legend himself, Warren Buffett, has announced that he will step down as CEO. So up until now, we also know that Warren Buffett has referred to Bitcoin more as a speculation, more like a game of roulette, which is not a serious investment. And Berkshire Hathaway has so far completely refrained from investing anything in Bitcoin. And now things are getting interesting because Berkshire Hathaway has a legendary cash reserve of around 348 billion US dollars. Well, I read somewhere else 334, but in the end a few billion. If we now assume that, okay, maybe 10% of this volume would flow into Bitcoin, that would be the first step for Bitcoin, then it becomes interesting. Buffett wants to retire by the end of this year. Let's be surprised if there might be a complete trend reversal. Because, by the way, if we assume that around 33 billion would flow into it, then Berkshire Hathaway would simply be the second largest Bitcoin holder at the current state. So at this point, you are welcome to write your opinion in the comments below. Do you think they will invest or rather not. Otherwise, let's move directly to the trading setup. As you saw in the intro, the VIP trading is done through BingX. This means if you're interested in receiving the signals for free and generating your profits, no investment advice here, of course, but you can view the results transparently and neutrally, all within the group. And last month was really wild. And then there are, of course, a few other special bonuses. In any case, if you're interested, feel free to register below. Shall we move on to the liquidation heat map? Now, over the course of 3 days, you can note that there's quite a bit of volume here. Further up, I would say this larger block and this larger block. But also down here, and if we now switch to a larger time frame, it still looks quite interesting. Because many are now asking themselves, yes, it was the breakout from the symmetrical triangle downwards. Bitcoin corrected downwards, but then there was initially a wick upwards again. And now one could naturally say, okay, was that perhaps the bottom? So you can see that here. Now we must not forget at this point, clearly up here, it lights up strongly there. But down here, there is also a substantial block, which has been here for quite some time. So especially this 91,500, I've mentioned it several times before. And yes, perhaps now the path is downwards again. So I'll show it to you in TradingView in a moment. What you should pay attention to now and where you can say, okay, will it continue upwards and will the whole thing be confirmed? Or do we see the path downwards here again because placing a limit order down there? And then saying, yep, all right, maybe it will go back up towards the 98K here. That's why quite nice, because we must not forget, the further we go down here again, the more we'll build up above, which is, of course, very lucrative for the market makers. For that, let's switch to the 15-minute view with Bitcoin. What can we see here? So we can extend that again. You can also see again how many retests, etc. That was represented in our area here. What was also interesting was this zone down here, which was briefly tested once. It is not unknown because we have already had a test here before and it continued upwards. We had a test here and we also had movements included here again. So yes, one could now say, okay, maybe that was the bottom. So we had our symmetrical triangle here and the breakout to the downside. However, I would still wait a bit, because if a clean double bottom forms here, all is well. Then it could continue upwards. But since there is still so much liquidity below, I can also well imagine that we might see the path downwards again. Because right here, where we are now, you can also see here, this is a strong support area, or rather resistance area. So far, there has been repeated rejection, even when there was a struggle, but bam, it went down again. And therefore, one should definitely keep an eye on this, as there has always been quite a lot of movement here in the past. That means for me, for you, for now, I would keep an eye on what happens here. So is there a sustainable breakout upwards here? Because then this zone is also cleanly broken through. And then it becomes interesting because clearly in the end, this area should finally be topped again. Because if that's the case, let's say around 95,700 plus or minus, then we can really talk about an uptrend again. Otherwise, it could also be that if rejection comes in here again, we might easily go down another level. And then it becomes quite interesting, but because if this doesn't hold here, then this is the next area, let's say around 92,900. And as we saw on the liquidation heat map, especially at 91, there's still quite a bit there. I still have my notification open here because I can quite imagine that the market makers might say, yo, funny, now let's push the price down nicely again, maybe to 91 something, into that area and nicely pick up the liquidity there. So we have this 91,950, so that wouldn't be too far off from here, by the way. And then on Wednesday, you could have the interest rate decision, etc. That's when it gets interesting because it could quickly go in the opposite direction. Let's take a further look at XRP. Of course, there was a pullback here as well, as I mentioned again yesterday. Clearly, everything is correlated with Bitcoin. We definitely have a zone up here, if you can call it up, where we have attractive liquidity. Let's briefly want to switch to the 4-hour view and take a quick look at this. And you can see once again there was no big breakout here. It continued downward. And now the chart is struggling quite a bit again. So I'm telling you, it doesn't look extremely promising right now. I'm also saying that we should ensure this zone holds. Let's say around 2.12, because if that's not the case, then the price continues to drop here, then it's very possible that we could end up directly around $2.08, $2.07, or theoretically down towards $2.05. So yes, it can happen relatively quickly that we might scratch the $2 mark again. Of course, it also depends a bit on what Bitcoin does. A quick look at Ethereum. I've deliberately chosen the 2-week view now. And if you look at this, there's still a big block open down here. Clearly, many have gone long here, which might want to be liquidated. And now a quick look at the 4-hour view. Yes, what you can see is still the same game. We see consolidation here, that's upward consolidation. Now the question is, depending on what happens with Bitcoin, will we enter this zone? Then it can go up relatively quickly. However, if this area doesn't hold, for example, then it can easily go down very quickly because there's not much movement here. And we might suddenly head towards 1680 plus or minus and get stuck here. And then, by the way, the price would quickly dive back into this downtrend, which it had initially worked its way out of quite nicely. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If it helps you, feel free to leave a free like below. Write a comment about your opinion. And if you're considering starting VIP trading with us on BingX, but don't know how the BingX platform works, then I have something for you. In this video specifically, it is not listed, but feel free to share it with anyone interested. There, I explain how to use BingX technically, and you just need an account there. Then you can directly secure the trading signals and start right away. So in this sense, we'll see each other tomorrow for the next update. Until then, all the best. Bye.